To say I love you only takes a moment. To show how to love takes a lifetime. A resident of Potzendorf, Uwe Misterlich, unofficially married Cecilia, his own cat. Uwe believes that Cecilia and he are very close, and that not every traditional family can have as strong and faithful a relationship as they do. Aya Rita Berlinermauer, age 29, married the Berlin Wall, with which she had fallen in love with during her childhood. Aya says that her relationship with the wall was the best of her life, including the intimate part of it. After the wall fell in 1989, Aya fell in love again, but this time with her own fence. The meaning of love in our world today has lost its true value. Although each person still has dreams about love that lasts a lifetime, people go through disappointment, betrayal, unfulfilled expectations, and divorce.
I thought that this was the end of my marriage. I felt like our marriage had reached its breaking point.
Why does every other marriage end in divorce? What can a family do if all hope to restore the relationship is lost? What's the recipe to love that lasts a lifetime and a happy marriage? Time together, Christ, respect. Studio The Truth About, together with international charity fund Youth with a Mission, presents Understanding, Expressing Appreciation, Commitment to Family, Positive Communication, Spiritual Commitment, Trust. Let's talk about family. Love. There is a saying, love is for all ages. People are born with a need to love. People around the globe have someone that they love. Everyone dreams about true love in marriage, where you'll be appreciated, cherished, and loved, and where your mistakes are ignored. Throughout history, love was full of mystery. It was pure and between people of the opposite sex. Although in our modern world, this word has lost its true value. Love has become open, unlimited, and dominated by the principle, love is the satisfaction of my own needs. Society believes desire and pleasure are more important than any rules and conventions. People break with the old concept of sex, which is based on a certain moral standard and secrecy. Sexual relations with some deviations from the norm are considered to be exotic and sophisticated by some people.
Our modern world has rejected all the taboos of the past, and now there is a new perspective. Love is sex, sex is love. People satisfy their own desires.
Our present world often tells us that love is about what I can get, and nothing can stop me from getting what I want. No ban, no tradition, and no taboos. There is a word of lust. It's a rarely used word meaning a strong and fast desire. This desire can be called a murderous desire. Give me or I will kill, or I will die.
You will always want more and more. And the more you've tried, the more you will want to experiment with something new. But in the end, there is always a feeling of emptiness and loneliness. No matter how long you search for it, you will not be satisfied to the full.
Mass media manipulates society with the word love. Televisions broadcast commercially viable melodramas with compelling love stories that are impossible in real life. Advertising uses the emotions of love and sexuality in promoting almost every product. Through this, people get the impression that if they want to be loved, they have to buy a certain product. To facilitate our existence, the internet and newspaper articles teach us how to keep our love strong in marriage. You can find many similar materials: how to prevent your love from growing cold, instructions for a real man, how to get a girl into bed, and so on. Various healers and fortune tellers offer us advice on how to strengthen our love and make the other person love you back. Astrologers advise us how to find and keep love. Psychologists tell us how to understand and accept one another. It seems that the world is ready to help us build a good family. But such things do not teach us or our spouse how to love each other. There is only one way to achieve true love. The romantic history of Oleg and Helen began when he was 17 and she was just 12. Oleg is a smart and attractive man, and he was the leader in his circle of friends. All the older girls dreamt of winning Oleg's heart. However, for some reason, he had eyes only for the youngest, Helen. She was a very quiet, calm, modest girl, kind of invisible, definitely not a show-off. Perhaps this very modesty was what attracted me to her the most. At first, Oleg and Helen's relationship was just friendly. Oleg was very caring towards Helen and helped her with everything. He was a good advisor and a wonderful friend.
I noticed that such attention was more like that of an older brother or a father. He was very considerate, very concerned to make sure that I wear a hat in winter. He wanted to know if I was cold and made sure that I was eating well. Once he even gave me a book on how to do exercises for women or girls.
Gradually, Helen and Oleg's friendship developed into something deeper. Helen was going through some previously unknown feelings that made her heart beat faster when she saw Oleg. She dreamt a lot. She felt like a princess. She was ready to embrace the whole world. Helen thought that she had fallen in love and that love was true love.
The first sign of emotional love or affection is that it comes very quickly. It may come at first sight, and that is why I believe that love at first sight does not exist. It is only an explosion of emotions.
The emotion of love is something that probably precedes true love. It's an admiration, a foundation of feelings which is very strong, but goes out and may never grow into real love. True love is, first of all, an action, not just blind or uncontrolled, but an action that is directed to satisfy the need, wife or husband, the one you truly love. Emotional love captured both Helen and Oleg. They spent all their free time together. They didn't want to be away from each other, and nothing seemed to be an obstacle to their love. But life is not easy. Very soon, Helen and Oleg's feelings were tested. Oleg went to study at a military college 3,000 kilometers away in Perm, Russia. Helen promised to wait for him. They met every 6 months and constantly corresponded by mail. However, Oleg's long stay in another country and Helen's youth gradually dispelled their feelings towards each other. Helen began to spend time with a different group of friends and started to date another guy. Oleg started dating another girl. He even had plans to marry her, but for some reason, he had a last-minute change of heart and did not marry her.
Emotional love and affection may either be over very quickly or grow into true love. Emotional love dies only in two cases. You will either hear a rejection from the other party, or you will reach your objective very quickly, after which the relationship becomes uninteresting for you.
When people say that their love for each other has died, I assume that it probably was never there to begin with. It was only the first stage of development. Admiration. Yes, the fountain was turned on, but nothing more happened. Because this first stage is all about what I can get from this and what I want. It has nothing to do with the fact that I want to give or that I will give. However, Helen and Oleg were not destined to remain just friends. Long-term feelings, friendship, and a desire to be with one another were obvious. When Oleg returned from college, they began dating again. And after a while, they felt sure that they were in love for life. And so Oleg and Helen decided to get married. The beginning of married life for the Sokolovy family was wonderful. They were happy, carefree, and totally in love. But every relationship must go through testing to become stronger. The Sokolovy family was no exception. Next, what problems can every young couple expect? How should you not act in a marriage? How do you stay in love through hard times? Falling in love is a deep belief that the other person will provide happiness for me, and will be the one who will fill my life with meaning. If that person is with me, he or she will be my heaven on earth. When people enter into marriage at this stage of their relationship, it's just a matter of weeks or months before the realization that the other person's presence does not provide a heaven on earth. The other person has his or her own needs, sucking you dry. You do not receive what you've waited for or hoped for. You thought that it will bring you peace, but that just doesn't happen. From here begins a war. Who will get more for himself or herself? And so people start to fight. Shortly after their wedding, the Sokolovy family began to have conflicts. Working for the military, Oleg spent long hours with his friends in bars and restaurants, forgetting his primary role as a husband to love his wife. Helen was annoyed because she had hoped that their relationship would be entirely different.
We just had very different views of the role of a woman and the role of a man. I wanted to control him. If someone had said so at the time, I would probably not have agreed with this statement. But I was the one who wanted to have power in my hands. When I did not succeed, it irritated me, and I just argued with him over every small thing. And my husband's reaction was like this. He would just get ready and go out with his friends. They had their hobbies, their interests. They met very often. His friends were single, and he felt good about it. But that made me feel even worse.
Oleg believed that a wife should be submissive in all things, and he thought that all he needed to do to please Helen was to bring money home. If I brought my salary home, I accomplished 90% of my duties. And nothing could be said against me for one simple reason, because I bring my money home. This was what I believed at the time.
When people get married, they have some expectations of the marriage. Often wives expect their husbands to understand them, or even to be able to read their thoughts. Husbands expect wives to share in their interests and their hobbies. But the greatest expectation that both spouses have is that their spouse will be perfect, meaning a husband or a wife who is perfect in everything. Then, when this doesn't happen, people get disappointed with each other, disappointed in their marriage, and eventually disappointed in themselves.
The family life of Oleg and Helen followed this principle: wife cook, husband salary. They would spend more time with their friends than with each other. They would fight over small things and would not give way to each other, and constantly blamed each other in any conversation they had. Conflicts ended in irrational arguments. Oleg would leave the house, slamming the doors, and Helen would be in despair because the conflict was unresolved. The Sokolovy family thought that their feelings for each other had passed, and their marriage was a mistake.
We were in love. Everything seemed to be fine before the marriage. So afterwards, everything should have been fine too. All these problems came up, and I had no one to advise me about what I should do. No one ever taught me this.
People say that love is a feeling that fills you up. Honestly, I agree that feelings accompany love, but love is far from being just a feeling, and it is not foremost a feeling. Love is an action. It is said, love your enemies. How can you ever have loving feelings for your enemies? I am certain that this command given to people means that if we do good, we need to take action. If I will do good even to my enemy, the feelings will come. Oleg and Helen knew that they did not want to carry on living the way they were. The Sokolovy family began considering divorce. At this time, something big happened in Helen's life. Her alcoholic father started going to church and reading the Bible. After he became a Christian, he stopped drinking alcohol, and his life radically changed. This had a big impact on Helen. She talked to her father a lot and, following his advice, began reading the Bible. The saying, "A wise woman builds up her home, but a foolish one destroys it with her own hands," inspired Helen to make the decision to fight for her marriage. She realized she was not a good wife, and she was going to lose her family if she did not change.
I realized that in many areas I was not right. Many of the problems I encountered I had created myself, and I was guilty of many things. This was a revelation to me. I never could understand what exactly I was doing wrong. Reading the Bible, thinking about all of this, and asking advice from my dad, I eventually saw that I truly needed to change myself. First of all, I needed to ask for forgiveness from my husband for all the fights that I had started. I did not know how I should change, but I knew that I had to take this first step.
Happiness in marriage demands both spouses to be active. It occurs when a person is ready to offer up their own interests, sacrifice something, wait, forgive, excuse, have a desire to help their spouse, desire to help them get what they want, that which makes them happy, that which brings joy, and that which is simply pleasant to them. The relationship between Oleg and Helen seemed to have started to improve. Helen could not believe her eyes. Would she finally really have a happy marriage? But nothing in life is easy, and changes do not happen overnight. Past lifestyle choices came back, and Helen again had to fight with her husband because of his irresponsibility. Not being able to bear this any longer, she told her husband to get out of her life. Oleg packed his things and left. After he left, Helen suddenly realized that she had done a very foolish thing. The next day, she phoned her husband and asked for forgiveness. He replied that he would forgive her, but he did not want to live with her anymore. Time passed, but Oleg had no desire to return to the family. Helen was desperate and restless. She constantly phoned him, suggesting that they should meet, but he would not reach out to her. Then she decided to trick him into coming back.
I made up many stories. I phoned him once and said that I was pregnant. My husband replied, "Don't I know that isn't true?" Then I tried to meet with him and explained to him that I understood, that I'm ready to change and to start all over again. But after a while, I realized that I'm not able to control him, that I'm not even able to control the situation that I was in. Often, people manipulate each other, thinking that they do a noble deed. Their motive can be good, either to get the other person to return or to change the person for the better. But in reality, the hidden motive for this is egoism.
Having tried all methods to get her husband's affections back without achieving anything, Helen was exhausted. Eventually, she came to a conclusion that by her own strength, she could not make Oleg return to the family.
I understood that if we were to divorce, then I was not sure I could have a normal life. I found a place in the Bible that says, "What God has joined together, no man should separate." I believed these words. Maybe I was not able to really pray in some special way, neither did I know many things, but I just shut the door of my small room, and on my knees, crying, I turned to God. I said, "God, I can do nothing more. All I have done has brought absolutely no result. But on the contrary, it has led to my husband wanting a divorce. I can't change anything, but I'm asking you to change my husband and to save my marriage."
I think that it is impossible for people to restore their broken marriage on their own until they return to the one who designed marriage and to his principles of marriage. We're speaking about God, because the marriage of a man and a woman is the plan of God.
When a family is on the edge of getting divorced, and they think that they no longer have love, when they are totally disappointed in themselves, then that is the time to think, do I have the source of love, out of which I can get enough for myself, and for giving to my spouse? Because love gives, but if I have nothing inside myself, then I can give nothing away.
If you look at the one who designed marriage, at God and his principles, then I'm sure that any marriage can be restored, regardless of what point of destruction it's at. One day, Helen was walking down the main street of the city and accidentally saw her husband with his friend. She began calling out to him, but he didn't hear her because he was too far away. The men went into the cafe, and Helen ran after them. Entering the premises, she saw a scene that was simply shocking. Coming up, what happened in the cafe? How do you overcome jealousy? How can you save your marriage? When Helen entered the cafe, she saw her husband sitting at a table with his friend and two women. They were happily hanging out. It was clear that they were not just friends. Helen stood near the bar, waiting for Oleg to come up to her and explain everything, but he ignored her.
A quiet voice inside me was telling me, "Helen, turn around and go home. Do nothing. Do not attempt anything." But my emotions were so strong that I couldn't just get up and leave the cafe. I greeted everyone politely and then smacked him really hard. Silence fell. All went quiet, and I left. Walking home, I realized that this was probably it. This was total failure. It was obvious. I had not changed anything, and my husband really wanted a divorce.
But God had something totally different in mind for the Sokolovy family. Helen's prayers did not go up in vain. The incident at the cafe forced Oleg to analyze his married life. I understood that I'm not doing a good thing, that a husband is not supposed to act like that. It does not matter whether you were unfaithful or not. I understood that this was indeed unfaithfulness. The fact that I sat next to another woman was enough. This smack did not really give me any prideful resentment. I understood that I deserved it. And from that point, I began to look at my wife and my marriage in a totally different way. Maybe it was God's will for someone to come and shake me up. The next day, Oleg met with Helen. After discussing the events from the previous day, it became clear that he had not been unfaithful to his wife. He had just been helping his friend with something, but instead, Oleg's friend had taken him to the cafe and invited his own friends. After a long talk, Oleg and Helen decided that they wanted to save their marriage. They agreed that both would work on their relationship, be faithful to each other, and would do all they could to let love reign in their family. I just realized that there were many problems inside myself, in my own sinful nature, in my worldview, in my attitude towards marriage, towards my wife, family, and others. I simply realized that I needed to start anew. The way I lived my life, how I built relationships, to get to know the world anew, and to get to know myself again. I knew that everything had to change.
The changes were in his behavior and his words. Gradually, his character changed. I also asked God for patience. I realized that a woman should not control the family, that a man is the head of the family. A woman has to support him. If these roles for men and women are switched, if the husband takes the place of the wife and the woman dominates in the family, I do not think this family will be happy because this is not God's plan or God's standard for the family.
I began to spend more time with my wife. We began to communicate more, started to share our hearts with each other at a spiritual and an emotional level.
We are an average family, where children get sick, where there are problems, where trials and different circumstances might come. But the right reaction to such circumstances makes all the difference. As it is written in the Bible, we must give everything to God, be patient, and support each other. We must not panic, and we shouldn't make a scene about our opinions.
Very often people say, "We have built a family. We've put 2 signatures on a marriage certificate and played wedding." But to build is a process. We must pick up bricks and mortar and sculpt and build. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. And it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. The Bible. Helen and Oleg consider themselves to be happy because they entrusted their family to God. Occasionally, they have conflicts, but unlike in the past, they overcome them. because they know that real love is not just a feeling, but a choice and a decision. Marriage has been created by God, and there are certain rules. Men and women should love one another like God loves all people, unconditionally and forever, sacrificing Himself. Only by following His example will a couple be able to achieve true love.
Среди тысяч глаз мы с тобой повстречались взглядом. Ты сейчас далеко, но я с тобою рядом. Снова я далеко. Где-то ты ждешь меня и веришь, я верю.